Hey guys, what's up? We're here in my garage for another how-to video. Today we are going to go through servicing and replacing the bearings and the linear sliders in Yeti's Switch Infinity Link suspension system. If you own a Yeti SB bike, you should be lubricating the Infinity Switch sliders around every 40 hours, depending on conditions. And every 6 months, you should be pulling the bike apart to service and lubricate the bearings. In my case, it's been an extremely wet and muddy winter this year, and I've been servicing the bearings and the sliders more frequently than I should, and I've still encountered premature wear on the bearings and the sliders. So, with how wet and muddy the conditions were this winter, I should have been lubricating the sliders about every 15 hours, which I wasn't doing. I was lubricating them every 2 to 3 weeks, which could end up being like 30 hours or so. So I've encountered premature wear on the Infinity Switch Link slider. And also, I thought while I was at it, I would replace all the bearings as well. So this is why you adhere to the maintenance schedule that they provide for you. So when they say every 40 hours, they mean every 40 hours. And if you're in really muddy conditions, it really doesn't hurt to grease it more often than you think you should. Because this is not the cheapest fix in the world. So let's get into it by removing the rear wheel first. So the tools I recommend for this service are a torque wrench with an assorted amount of torque bits, a set of Allen wrenches, 2 3-way Allen keys, zip ties. This is the punch I'll be using, but you should probably use a real punch to get the bearings out. And we'll be using a Fox linear bearing kit and a SB6 bearing rebuild kit. So now we can take the shock off. You want to use 2 5mm Allen keys and just slowly twist it off. And you want to lightly place it back. So now that the shock is off, we can remove the collet bolts with a 5mm Allen wrench. And also the lower link as well. We're going to set all our bolts aside. Now that the collet bolts are out, we can now remove the lower axle with a 10mm wrench. And let it down softly. This is when we want to start using the zip ties to tie the swing arm up to the seat rails. We're using the zip ties to give the suspension support so it doesn't dangle towards the ground. Now that it's all tied up, we can finally remove the upper axle with the same 10mm wrench. And we can pull the upper axle out. For now, we're just going to let the rear swing arm hang like that so we can access the dog bone link. So now that that's done, we can start by using the 2 5mm Allen wrenches again and taking the dog bone link out. Take one bolt out. So now, using our 5mm wrench, we're going to take off the Infinity Switch Link. and make sure the little washer comes out with it. So now to remove the other side. So the reason this is so gunky and dirty is I've literally been greasing it every ride. It's that scored up on these sanctions. I just stopped caring about it because honestly these are trashed. So I don't know. Just kind of gave up on it until I got the new ones. You're gonna have to slide the link through carefully, not to scratch things up. And you can see all the excess grease I left down there. But you see, if I push these out, they're all silver and messed up. This one actually seems to be okay. Not very worn out, but the right side is definitely long past gone. And unfortunately, they don't sell just these little sanctions. I had to replace the whole piece. So now that everything is off the bike, we can do a thorough clean of the spots we can't really reach when we're normally cleaning the bike. So this sanction slider is not too bad. It has a little bit of scoring, but I probably would have kept it, to be honest. But my real concern was about 2 weeks ago I found out that this one just took a beating. So it's very damaged and it needed to be replaced. It was almost to the point where it was gouging and getting caught up on it. So I would grease it every day for the past 2 weeks to make it ride somewhat okay. But if this was damaged, this must have been damaged as well, just from sliding in and out with gouge metal. So this entire piece is going to be replaced. And I thought while I was at it, we should just replace the bearings of the dog bone link. I've serviced the dog bone link probably like 3 times in the past 6 months, but I don't know, new bearings never hurt. So yeah, this is the old infinity switch slider. And this is the new slider with the bearing installed already. So you can see nice and shiny, no imperfections, and we're going to keep it that way. So these bearings only turn about a quarter turn to half turn in their entire lifespan. So just to get the grease all around, we want to spin up the bearings. Also, every time you do your like 6-month checkup and lubrication of the bearings, make sure to give this several spins. I would go for 30 seconds to a minute and just keep spinning just to get that lubrication all over the place. Because what happens is when it sits in the frame, it pretty much wears out 3 to 4 bearings the entire time. So you really want to give it a couple spins. So this is where it gets to the part where I've never done this before. So I've never punched out a bearing before, and honestly the tutorials I've seen online look a bit sketchy, so yeah, don't quote me on any of this, but we're going to try and get this done in the safest manner possible. So now we have the sketchy part of knocking out the bearings. So this is the way I saw to knock out the dog bone bearings on a forum. So yeah, no complaining about how this is being done because I don't have a punch and this way it works. I actually just got one bearing out already just as a test and it went smoothly. So we have the dog bone in. Kind of a soft vise. Not really, we're just using the towel. Already knocked one side out, so we can take the spacer out. Oh, grimy. And then this is my makeshift punch, which I made softer with some painter's tape, and it's just a Moto T-handle. So We were able to successfully get the second bearing out, and I mean, this process doesn't seem too terrible for the link, so I'm going to use it for all four. Be careful only to lightly clamp the dog bone link and the vise. Those bearings didn't require a whole lot of force to knock out. So now that the bearings are out, we can finally clean this whole dog bone link up. And while all these parts are off your bike, you should inspect everything, including your frame, for major scratches and damages. This has a couple scratches, but nothing major, just through the paint a little bit, so it's still going to be good. So now that the dog bone link is completely clean, we're ready to press in the bearings. We're going to start off by lightly greasing the outside of the bearing. We're going to include the spacer. And we're going to use the vise again to press in the bearings. You want to be careful not to get it too tight. And make sure it's flush on both sides. So after much trial and error, I finally got them in. It's very hard to press these in flush, and if you press them in at all at an angle, you can obviously tell that the axle won't slide through properly if it's at an angle. So what I found out after looking on some forums some more, if you use a 20mm socket, fits over and you can press them in that way. It helped out, but it wasn't flawless. It definitely messed up a few times, but unfortunately I didn't get all of that on film. But yeah, the way to press these in. But yeah, it took a while to press these in, but now that they're in, we can now install the dog bone link on the bike. But first, we should probably spin up the bearings as we did with this linkage bearing. You want to do the other side as well. So as we install the dog bone link, the longer link on the right is actually for the upper axle, whereas the smaller link will go through the infinity switch link down here. Remember that the side to the right that protrudes farther out is the drive side, whereas the flatter side is the non-drive side. And make sure this bolt is lightly greased as it goes in. You tighten it up with two 5mm wrenches. Yeti recommends a torque of 8 Newton meters. So we're going to apply a dab of grease on the inside of the rocker, on the inside of the slider, just so these little black pieces will stick as they're upside down, and so the bolt can go through with ease. Also, when it comes time to lubricate it at that 40-hour interval, Fox recommends you use Mobile XHP 222 lubricant. And that's inserted with a grease gun like this into these Zerk fittings. Always set your torque wrench back to 0 before you put it away. Now we're going to check that the action of the suspension is smooth. Now to install the shock back on the bike. So the shock's all mounted. Now we're ready to put the back wheel in. Put the clutch back on. Put it here. And we're ready to go. No more rough suspension feel. Hopefully you enjoyed this how-to video. Honestly, that was my first time punching out and pressing in new bearings. It was kind of a hassle, but it wasn't too bad. Any experienced home mechanic could easily do this at home. I hope you guys liked this video. I'm still learning on how to film these how-tos a little bit better. I'm still figuring it out. It's pretty hard to do by yourself on a sketch tripod like this. I have it mounted up to another bike stand. But yeah, we're figuring out all the kinks. But yeah, I'm striving to give you guys better quality. It will show after a couple more videos. And I can't wait to get better so you guys can enjoy the videos that much more. I encourage you to subscribe, and I can't wait to see you guys out on the trails. Cheers, guys.